If you're a big fan of Resident Evil and Silent Hill, then you should play Signalis. I think that's about all that needs to be said, really. This is a game enamored with the history of survival horror gaming, calling back to the classics at every turn. Even oldies like Enemy Zero are represented. But the way it's all presented gives all this material a fresh edge here. The isometric perspective is as dispassionate and functional as the retro, futuristic office space and equipment you navigate through. But that initial uniformity only helps highlight the ways in which this regimented work environment gets twisted and corrupted by the horrors consuming it. Thankfully, this view doesn't get exhausting either, as it gets broken up by various charming little first-person segments and other one-off shifts in gameplay. The view also makes for fair-feeling enemy encounters, as your viewpoint allows you to assess dangers in combat well, while still allowing for blind spots at the screen's end where enemies could be lying in wait. The PS1 polygonal models and pixelized environments are beautiful here. It offers a very clean yet still abstract and dreamlike visual style. It also complements the retro tech aesthetic very well. The old tube monitors and radios you'll be making use of feel right at home with these old school visuals. The use of color and lighting brings out the thick mood, and this nostalgic look isn't a crutch. There's an above and beyond attention to detail here that still makes it feel stylish and fresh. Sound is also very well done. The ambient music is varied and moody, and grisly sound effects are just as well considered. The only part of the presentation I was a bit mixed on were the 2D art segments and cutscenes featuring the manga-esque characters. They're fine, they just feel a little simple and less eye-catching than the rest of the visuals. Thankfully, Signalis isn't just a cool mood, but an engaging survival horror game mechanically too. I wouldn't say there's anything groundbreaking added to the usual formula here, but it takes from the best to create a system that will have you thinking and playing carefully to survive. 6 inventory slots and a host of save room item boxes make for tricky management choices. Taken straight from RE Remake, enemies will come back to life after a time if not burned, making you have to think carefully about what paths to take back and forth across the labyrinthine levels. You'll also have to make tough choices about which downed enemies to use your limited supply of incinerating items on. Weapon variety is also good, but it's not all just about powerful weapons and weak weapons and saving your strongest ammo for later. Different guns are better for certain encounters depending on how many enemies you'll be facing and in what kind of environment. Everything felt well balanced too on my first run. I felt the pressure and wasn't making choices lightly, but I also never felt like I had backed myself into a corner and would need to crawl on my hands and knees to scrape by. I also really like the puzzles in this game. It was just about the perfect difficulty for me, as I had to sit and think for a bit on a few occasions, but the solutions always came and I never had to look anything up. There are also puzzles that serve the double purpose of getting you to engage with the wider universe of the title. There's a lot of interesting lore to explore in this world, and while it's not the plot's main focus, that wider world that's hinted at gives the game a nice bit of extra character. Everything you read is also from a biased perspective, so it's fun to read between the lines to figure out what's actually going on in this universe. As for the main plot, you play as a desperate character searching for someone, and the game puts her through her paces. There's some very well executed moments as the journey threatens to crush her. Combined with the intense gameplay and hopeless environments, those moments were made all the more compelling. The story is chock full of heavy themes. An almost omnipresent shadow that looms over the game is the repressive society presented. The title explores the toll living under it takes on the inhabitants of this universe, with literal examples and perhaps some allegorical ones too. What's interesting though is the focus on androids here in this society, and how synthetic people literally built to serve a specific function end up cracking under it despite that. How different people, or these cybernetic people, perceive reality and sort through their memories is a big focus, and you probably won't be surprised to hear that the game plays with reality, the order of events, and what is actually happening a lot to delve into these concepts. I've only beaten the game one time and I can say there's a lot I'm still piecing together, but the game was compelling enough to where I actually want to do that and keep thinking about it after the playthrough. Piecing everything together will no doubt take a few runs, which I'm looking forward to doing eventually. There are multiple endings too, from what I can tell, but there was nothing really in the game that struck me as a clear diverging point for different outcomes, so I'm intrigued to discover what other secrets I missed in here. My playthrough clocked in at just over 9 hours, and at a budget price, I'd highly recommend this game to longtime horror fans looking for a compelling, intense adventure that will stick with you afterwards.